Good evening. Thank you so much for attending the State of the City address tonight. We have a wonderful turnout, even with the rain. I'd like to introduce Leanne Baroldi, who is going to lead us in the national anthem, and you're welcome to join along.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you so much, Leanne. Good evening, fellow residents and honored guests. I'm Cynthia Sternquist, because it says it right there, I think. The Mayor of Temple City, and on behalf of our City Council, I'm proud to welcome you to the 2018 State of the City Address. I hope you enjoyed our video that is going to be shown right now. So ladies,
excuse me, I was wondering if you could tell me where the history section is?
Sure, it's right over there.
Thank you. I think I'm going crazy. This book told me there was more to the story, but there aren't any other photos inside.
You're not going crazy. There's more to the story. It just hasn't been written yet. You'll see. Why don't you take it home with you?
Okay, thanks.
so I hope you liked the video, even though it ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Here in Temple City, our story is a multi-layered one, and it often requires different types of media to tell it. Throughout the evening, I'll incorporate 2 more videos into my presentation as another form of storytelling, one I hope will inspire and entertain. I can also promise you'll see a resolution to our main character's dilemma, but it might not involve time travel just yet. To start off, I'd like to introduce my fellow council colleagues. Mayor Pro Tem William Mann, would you stand? Council Member Tom Chavez. Council Member Nanette Fish. And Council Member Vincent Yu. In addition, I'd like to introduce our city manager, Brian Cook, and all the staffers and volunteers who have given their time and energy to the benefit of Temple City. Each person who turned an ear to listen will leave with an understanding of the profound power we hold as authors of Temple City's collective story. I'd also like to thank my family, city and local officials, and community partners for joining us here tonight. The past several years have seen our city work toward building a new legacy. From the opening of Camellia Square to the launch of a new Veterans Memorial, to the growth of our city's presence on social media. It's been a renaissance of sorts for this very special community. I'm always impressed by our residents' willingness to come together as architects of our community's destiny, and 2017 was no exception. Over the past year alone, we completed our mid-century general plan, developed a framework to ensure the health and happiness of our senior population, and saw more and more of our residents become active volunteers. And that's not even the half of it. In my experience as a representative of Temple City, I've learned that who we are and where we go are not predetermined. Our future is entirely dynamic, meaning we share the opportunity to define it together. It is my hope that by the end of this address, everyone here will leave with the realization that they are authors of our future story. Temple City Library. As we work to shape our story, we take inspiration from the stories of those who have come before us. With that in mind, we're proud to move forward with a full-scale revamp of our Temple City Library. Construction is set to begin in 2019, and when it does, it'll represent the culmination of years of compromise and hard work. Since 1963, our library has stood next to City Hall, near the intersection of Golden West and Woodruff Avenues. And while it might have been perfect for the community it served when it opened its doors 55 years ago, it's now far too small for the number of people who use it. You might be thinking, surely there could be worse problems for a city to have. But spearheading a major renovation of the library has been one of my top priorities ever since I joined the City Council back in 2009. My experience on the LA County Library Commission was something of a crash course in securing funding and other much-needed resources for our community. But in the long run, it only strengthened my belief in the transformative powers of literacy, reading, and learning, much like traveling, but without the expense. Our perspective-changing portals to bold new worlds. It's my long-held belief that every community deserves the key to unlocking those portals. When considering how our freshened-up library should look, we turn to you for feedback. You weren't shy about letting us know your concerns, that the existing library is old, overused, and quite frankly, not up to our city's usual standards of attractiveness. You asked for more seats, more technology stations, and updated book collections. But the most vocal way in which you communicated with us didn't even involve words. You simply continued to show up to the library and participate in its programs, silently proving how vital a resource it remains to our community. Because our library is owned and operated by the county, we're fortunate to have devised an arrangement that allow us to share the $3.9 million cost of the revamp. The funding will help us add 1,400 square feet to our library's current footprint, most of which will dedicate to creating a new area for children and families. We've also managed to fundraise over $100,000 for a one-of-a-kind interior gateway leading into the children's area. The gateway will feature public art and interactive elements. It's our hope that it grows into a kind of community touchstone for Temple Cityans of all ages. And as I look at the audience, I see so many of our community partners who donated to our library, and my heart is filled with gratitude to each and every one of you who will make our children's library one of the most unique and special in the LA County Library. So congratulations to all of you, and you deserve a big hand. Temple City, as many of you are aware, is well known for its high educational standards, and those begin with our youngest residents. In many families, literacy begins even before children are born, with mothers and fathers reading out loud during pregnancy. But the effort shouldn't stop there. In fact, early literacy and language skills are key indicators of future academic and life success. Giving our growing kids a place to let their imaginations run wild is part of the process of establishing a lifelong love of reading. That doesn't mean this expansion is just for the little ones. It'll be critical to build environments for visitors of all ages, including teenagers, adults, and seniors. To that end, we intend to debut designated spaces for patrons who want to study, participate in the library's programming, or kick back with a good book. We're even looking into installing a collection of what are known as bubbles, or freestanding private rooms that can be reserved for meetings or study sessions. Despite our progress, it's an unfortunate reality that economic difficulty and unemployment aren't entirely in our city's rearview mirror just yet. To address these issues, our library is set to become a breeding ground for innovation. Think of it as a hub of adult and continuing education classes, English language workshops, and even tech trainings designed to help our residents work better and more efficiently. Likewise, we plan to incorporate more personal development courses, like the library's hit series geared toward the empowerment of young women, into an expanded slate of programming. It's our way of acknowledging that opportunities for learning and the wonderment it inspires go far beyond books. Our Camellia Festival. Many of us are eager to move into the new era the library revamp represents. But as we plot our next steps, it's important that we take stock of some of our oldest traditions and what they mean to us. Annual events like the Camellia Festival, for example, remind us of what and who we used to be. They encourage us to show pride in our hometown and help us stay connected as a community, knit together by shared experiences and recollections. And in the case of the Camellia Festival, they generate more than $15,000 a year in net revenue, all of which goes back into the community via investments in youth organizations, schools, and scholarship funds. In 2019, the Camellia Festival will celebrate its 75th anniversary. It was founded at the twilight of World War II, back when Temple City's topography still reflected its farm town roots. Let it sink in for a moment just how far this humble festival and we as a community have come since then. It's no secret that the Camellia Festival has struggled with dwindling numbers of attendees and volunteers over the years. However, I am optimistic that with your help, we can think of creative ways to energize the festival in coming years. Looking forward, the question becomes a personal one. How can we better tailor our traditions to reflect the city we want to be? We can start with a healthy dose of nostalgia. Instead of recruiting a celebrity who lacks any real ties to our community to serve as the parade's grand marshal, we made waves this year by inviting Joel Christopher Payne, a licensed Disney artist and Temple City High School alum, to lead the procession. With the festival's 75th anniversary on the horizon, its organizing committee has plans to pay tribute to the past by inviting former court members and parade marchers back home to take part in the celebration. Also in the works is the proposed revival of a classic Camellia Festival tradition that saw storefronts on Las Tunas get into the spirit and fun by decorating their windows and opening their doors to mingle with event goers. Of course, it's not our goal to become so mired in nostalgia that we lose sight of the road ahead. Instead, the committee has championed new techniques to make this event significantly more inclusive, and I'm happy to describe it today as both multi-generational and multicultural draw. While the festival's focus is still on the kids, our esteemed royal court is made up of first graders. After all, efforts have been made to appeal to older guests as well. The committee recently installed a beer and wine garden, for instance, and it's quickly become a popular home base for unofficial Temple City High reunions. Teenagers, too, have been given new roles as festival volunteers. More and more high schoolers and club members have signed on to assist with running the show, and their contributions have helped keep the event afloat. In coming years, we hope to further incorporate our young people's expertise by inviting a local school robotics team to redesign our parade floats. Much like our city itself, the Camellia Festival has benefited from a welcome infusion of diversity through partnerships with groups like the Temple City Chinese American Association. The demographics of our royal court have become more diverse than ever, giving us the opportunity to teach more of our youngest residents the importance of becoming civically active. Yet the work to preserve a tradition like this can't be done in a vacuum. With 2019 inching ever closer, the committee is looking for community members just like you to weigh in on what you'd like to see at next year's Camellia Festival and beyond. Whether it's a specific carnival game, more Chinese food vendors, or a showing of memorabilia from past festivals, all ideas the committee has considered so far. Additionally, we hope you'll consider volunteering to make our 75th edition of our beloved festival unforgettable. On that note, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize all the volunteers who participated in this year's Camellia Festival. Please stand and let's give them a round of applause. Las Tunas. Oh, Las Tunas. Remember the fun we had with thinking about Las Tunas? One of the most important components of a story is its setting. Here in Temple City, we've leaned into the concept of a community made of residential, commercial, and mixed-use developments. But the beating heart of a city's geography is still its downtown core, the proverbial Main Street USA, and ours could use some resuscitation. Strengthening our downtown core comes with its own set of challenges. As many will remember, the city had developed plans and gauged the community's enthusiasm for an ambitious project that would have transformed the physical configuration of Las Tunas. These changes were conceived with the intention of inviting more pedestrian and bike traffic, which we hoped would result in a more intimate downtown feel. But after reviewing residents' comments, including your concerns regarding the potential impacts of the plan, the council chose to no longer move forward with it. This created a unique opportunity to entirely rethink our vision of what we consider our downtown core, Las Tunas between Golden West and Cloverly Avenues, and Temple City Boulevard between Workman and Woodruff Avenues. Yet again, shaping this vision will require us to look closely at ourselves to determine who we are and what we wanted to project to the outside world. In other words, we'll need to make difficult, defining decisions about our city's identity, something our community all too often avoided in the past. One aspect of Temple City's identity that's undeniable is the value we all place on family. As I mentioned earlier, our families are multi-generational and multicultural. They form the backbone of our increasingly diverse community. Our downtown core should reflect this by providing more open spaces and other tools for spending time together face to face. We've come up with a series of proposed beautification measures designed to make downtown Temple City a much more vibrant place to be. These improvements would heighten the appeal of our downtown streetscape and also increase its functionality. Many of the items on the table seem obvious: new benches and trash bins, repainted lampposts, and seasonal fabric or metal banners to welcome visitors to our city. Other additions would serve to greenify downtown. Think bigger planters, more flowering trees, and parklets that turn underused sidewalks into shaded hangout spaces, complete with seating and lights. We'll also be considering ways to incentivize businesses and property owners to help us on our journey to building a better downtown. Plans are in the works for the city to potentially fund pilot programs that would allow downtown businesses to install new signage, colorful awnings, and outdoor dining areas. Bringing diners outside, the thinking goes, provides a visual sense of camaraderie and energizes the downtown area. In spring, our City Council will evaluate a selection of these proposed concepts, which are grouped together into price brackets ranging from $300,000 to $2.5 million. The Council will heavily weigh the input of the Chamber of Commerce and other business owners who'd be particularly impacted by any changes made to the streetscape. Depending on their feedback and the Council's final decision, the project could take between 5 and 10 years to complete. It may seem costly and time-consuming, but I'm confident it'll pay dividends to the community for years to come. The project's initial goal, beautification, will go a long way toward aiding us in our goal of establishing a cohesive identity that attracts investors and visitors to Temple City. Refreshed interest in our downtown core will spur economic development, bringing new businesses and younger generations of patrons. Both of these things will be integral to our city's longevity as we enter a future in which success and financial security aren't always guaranteed. Our neighbor Pasadena has its historic Old Town. Down south, Orange County's revitalized Santa Ana Arts District has become a cultural destination and major hotspot for foodies. For the time being, Temple City's core is a blank canvas, but it's time for us to conceive of our own downtown environment, one that's authentically in tune with our community's history, character, and ambitions. And I know many of your favorite topic, parking. Improving our downtown core is going to be a twofold challenge. We can spend years developing plans to improve the area's aesthetics. But at the end of the day, those plans will be fruitless if we don't also take measures to make downtown more accessible. That's where our parking master plan comes into play. We last updated this plan back in 2012. In the years that followed, the city honored a number of recommendations to increase the availability of downtown parking. Those recommendations included restriping our existing lots to create more parking spaces, revising the time limits on certain spaces to boost turnover, and purchasing an additional 2 properties to be used as public lots in the future. But since then, we saw a shift take place downtown. More and more of the area's retail storefronts became restaurants, bringing larger numbers of patrons and employees downtown on a regular basis. And while it might not be pleasant to fight for parking spots on our evenings out, the demand for more parking spaces should actually be considered a success. Why, you may ask? Because it means more of us are actively exploring our city and connecting with each other. It's also proof that our downtown businesses are thriving, which means our economy is too. We want to extend the momentum. One way to do this is by reassessing our current parking plan, a task the city formally embarked upon last June. In January, the city selected a firm called Transpo Group to help us manage the development and implementation of a new parking plan. Our partnership with Transpo will be paid for with $52,000 from our general fund reserve. Any unused money will go back into the reserve once the project is finished. The main objective is to analyze how we can best manage our parking supply, which at the moment consists of on-street stalls and private or city-owned surface lots over the next 3 to 5 years. Transpo will conduct a review of how these options are currently used and how we can better maximize them as demands shift. Together, we'll also look at strategies to accommodate employee parking, including through the operation of a 27-stall lot opened in October at 5800 Temple City Boulevard, and manage our 2 future lots on Primrose Avenue. The Primrose properties could host more surface stalls or even multi-level structures, and we look forward to hearing Transpo's recommendations for their use. In fact, we're open to a variety of creative suggestions, ranging from reworked time limits on individual stalls to designated pickup and drop-off zones for ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft. If it can help our residents better enjoy and contribute to our growing downtown core, we're happy to consider it. Our general plan. Our parking plan isn't the only set of guidelines we're revisiting with new eyes. Last year, Mayor Yu stood at the same podium and touched on the progress of our general plan advisory committee. At that point in time, the committee was nearing the completion of our 1 million mid-century general plan, the first major update to our city's general plan since 1987. The update will shepherd the city's physical growth through the year 2050. But before I go further into explaining how it works, I'd like to take a brief moment to recognize the work of the advisory committee. These members spent nearly 4 years and attended more than 40 public meetings on the road to refining the plan. They answered the call to become literal authors of our city's story, and their contributions will be appreciated for years to come. Please stand, the members, and join me in giving them a big hand. committee kicked off its work by gauging residents' concerns about the future. One thing that stuck out was a worry about housing. Will there be enough of it? What if we're priced out of it? And more importantly, will our kids be able to afford starting their own families in Temple City? Keeping those concerns at the top of the heap, the committee expertly engineered a plan that ensures a range of housing options and a housing supply that'll grow alongside Temple City's population. By 2050, our population is expected to climb to 46,000 people. That's over 10,000 more than we have now. The updated plan accommodates the increase in a variety of ways. Downtown will see new mixed-use developments, places that blend high-density housing, retail, dining, and public areas. Picture yourself waking up in a high-rise condo, grabbing coffee at the cafe downstairs, and spending your morning reading the newspaper and chatting with neighbors. That's the kind of lifestyle a mixed-use development affords. It breaks down the walls between us so that we can share more of our stories with each other. A mixed-use village, complete with newly approved multi-story buildings, is already in the works near the intersection of Rosemead Boulevard and Las Tunas. But that doesn't mean we'll be abandoning our more traditional neighborhoods. Quite the opposite, actually. Our committee works steadfastly to create policies on things like historic preservation and natural resource conservation. These policies will allow our residential areas to continue to thrive, keeping our neighborhoods livable, pedestrian-friendly, and architecturally appealing. Other areas addressed by the plan range from sustainability to health to recreation. To get more of our residents outside, for instance, we're exploring options for new bike paths and reimagined green spaces like Eaton Wash. You can access the full plan on our city website in the form of a digitized story, illustrated with photos and other graphics. As you read through it, we hope you reflect on how your individual story fits into the larger scheme of Temple City's future. We also hope you'll consider joining an advisory group that's set to begin working on rewriting our zoning codes later this spring. Our current zoning codes date back to the 1960s. Only after it's been updated will we be able to implement our new mid-century general plan. So if you're looking to make an impact locally, think of this as your chance. Our strategic plan. The mid-century general plan will guide our city into the future. But for it to do that, we'll have to create a companion plan that's a little more grounded in the here and now. That is what we call our strategic plan. To differentiate between the two, think of them this way. The general plan is like a map charting our city's long-term physical growth, while the strategic plan is in the detailed instructions for how to navigate it. We're lucky to be at a crossroads when it comes to making these kinds of decisions. As a city, we've been given a remarkable opportunity to collectively redirect our narrative. The strategic plan will focus on the next 3 years of that narrative, looking at core issues like Temple City's economic development and the upkeep and expansion of our infrastructure. Set to be completed later this spring, the plan will take into account the real-life constraints on our city, things like budgetary limits and zoning regulations. It'll help our city council craft new policy and perhaps most importantly, keep us in control of our narrative by holding us accountable. So far, we've begun work on a new mission statement and a set of guiding principles designed to help steer our future actions. These things might seem insignificant at first glance, but in fact, they're the cornerstones of our story. For starters, they'll influence our strategy for economic development. How can we enrich our residents' lives by getting the most out of our existing resources and investing in new ones? Earlier, I touched on the general plan's recommendations for mixed-use developments, but there are plenty of other ideas in the works. Reimagining the former Kmart Plaza after the store closes is just one example of the kind of project the strategic plan will help us coordinate and carry out. On a more personal level, the plan will ensure our residents continue to have access to well-maintained parks and recreation areas, community services, and a year-round slate of activities and events. Completing these strategic guidelines will carry us even closer to the future laid out in the general plan. To help us stay on track, the city will release to the public 2 annual progress reports showing exactly what we've done to make our short-term goals a reality. The reports will also detail our efforts to put into place elements of the general plan and recommendations from other more specialized plans. I'm certainly under no delusions that we'll be able to write or predict the future. But in taking time to draft a clear picture of what we want for our community and the steps we can take to get there, we're more likely to putting ourselves on the path to success. Volunteers. All this talk about citizen planning committees brings to mind a topic that's very dear to my heart: volunteering. As a former educator and literacy coach, I've witnessed firsthand the many benefits of volunteering. Along with contributing to the greater good of the community, volunteering has profound effects on the volunteers themselves. Luckily, Temple City offers plenty of opportunities to get involved. Let's learn more about some of those opportunities from Samir Milika, who volunteers almost daily with our senior lunch program.
I'm Samir Milika and I volunteer at Live Oak Park, serving hot lunches to around 80 people every day. Aside from getting to help people, there are so many reasons why I love volunteering. It introduces me to new friends and experiences, and even in retirement, it makes me feel like I have accomplished something remarkable each day. Volunteering is an opportunity to make a difference in someone else's story and to enrich my own. Through volunteering, I have realized my neighbors and I are more alike than we are different. We all share passion to build a better future for our community. And did you know volunteering also has proven health benefits? It is true. Volunteering has been shown to improve memory, contribute to weight loss, and serve as a tool against chronic mental illness like depression and anxiety. When we are caring for others, we are more likely to care for ourselves and vice versa. There is no shortage of ways to get involved in Temple City. There are several membership groups that meet weekly to organize service projects and fundraisers for a variety of causes. They also happily open their doors for new recruits. Even the city itself has gotten into the action with dedicated service programs. City volunteers assist with everything from setting up and manning booths at annual events to providing translation for Chinese speakers. It's a great way for newcomers to dip their toes into the larger pond of volunteerism based on their skill sets. If you are unsure about the kind of opportunity you're looking for, contact City Hall to learn more about potential placement. It's part of the city's mission to find the right match for everyone who wants to make an impact. And it's my personal hope that over the next year, everyone in Temple City gets the chance to experience the feeling of purpose that comes from giving back regularly.
Is Samir here this evening? Samir, would you stand and... And Samir, you've been doing this how many years, the senior lunch? 7 years. Thank you. Senior Master Plan. Along with our general and strategic plans, we've recently taken steps to put into place yet another framework for better serving one of our city's key populations, seniors, which they told me I'm now a part of. Temple City is rapidly graying. By 2027, it's estimated nearly 40% of our population will be over 55 years old, a reality our city isn't alone in dealing with. In fact, senior populations in cities throughout California are expected to rise over the next 10 to 20 years. But as our baby boomers age, it doesn't mean their stories need to come to an end. It also doesn't mean they should stop contributing to the larger story shared by all of Temple City. Designed to serve residents over 50, Temple City's first ever Senior Master Plan will be presented to our City Council in April. The plan features 24 expert-approved recommendations for action steps to be taken over the next 1 to 10 years. These steps will vastly improve the quality of life for our seniors, whose needs we found are pretty similar across the board, regardless of ethnicity or other demographic factors. Some of the first steps we need to take revolve around mobility and socialization. Simply figuring out a way for our seniors to get outside of their homes and around their neighborhoods, including during emergencies, is a major priority. As we explore partnerships with ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft, for example, we'll also devise ways to teach our seniors how to use them. None of our residents should have to feel lonely or isolated. With that in mind, we'll work at developing more activities, outings, and even volunteer opportunities geared towards seniors. Likewise, expanding our case management system will help us better keep tabs on our seniors, all in an effort to ensure they're receiving the standard of care they deserve. And continuing to promote our senior lunch program, the launch of which I'm proud to have spearheaded back in 2011, will allow us to provide new audiences of as many as 80 seniors each day with hot lunches at free or a nominal donation. Our longer-term goals include creating a dedicated community space for our seniors, creating more lifelong learning and fitness programs, and collaborating with developers to guarantee plenty of housing options for older adults. Because these tend to be costlier goals, we're now in the process of researching funding sources that would give us the means to achieve them. Again, I'd like to pause to show my appreciation for members of the volunteer committee who spent 8 months compiling these action steps. Our committee members were police officers, healthcare workers, and other everyday people who saw a need and came together to make sure it was addressed. Please stand and let's hear it for our Senior Master Plan Committee. Thank you. Over the next year, I'll be calling on each and every one of you to join a new Senior Advisory Committee. Under the direction of the Parks and Recreation Commission, this committee will advise residents on senior-related issues and, most importantly, work to oversee the Senior Master Plan's adoption. Committee members will also be instrumental in helping us forge relationships with public and private service providers who can give our seniors access to outside resources and other opportunities. Age shouldn't discourage anyone from supporting this valuable cause. Millennials, your knowledge and input will be essential as we explore proposals like an intergenerational tech lab and a social program that would see younger and older residents paired up for regular meetups. Writing the plan was just the tip of the iceberg. Now it's up to all of us to make sure our senior safety net remains strong going forward. Law enforcement. A hot topic, I know, here in Temple City. Our community safety net is only as strong as our local law enforcement. We've had a few challenges over the past year, but I can confidentially say our city weathered them in stride, thanks to some remarkable displays of unconventional thinking. Let's start with an accomplishment worth celebrating. Overall, major crime in Temple City dropped nearly 4% between 2016 and 2017. But as recently released crime data demonstrates, one looming area of concern is residential burglary. We saw a nearly 9% increase in residential burglaries, or burglaries that occur in people's homes over the past year. Because we put a premium on transparency here in Temple City, we don't want to mask or ignore those findings. The truth is, there's been an uptick in burglaries throughout the San Gabriel Valley. In many neighborhoods, it's common for families to keep large amounts of cash and jewelry on hand, and thieves have taken note. In some cases, they've even managed to carry entire safes out of homes. To deal with a rash of burglaries, several months ago, the City Council arranged for more patrol cars, as many as 4 per night, to keep watch over our streets. Our local sheriff's department have begun meeting more and more frequently to stay abreast of crime in each other's districts and to advise each other of the best ways to deal with those jumps. During our research, we discovered most residential burglaries happen when people aren't home. To give families a leg up on combating residential crime even when they're away, Temple City launched a new initiative offering subsidized Ring video doorbells to residents. Outfitted with video cameras, the doorbells allow homeowners to see, hear, and speak to anyone who comes knocking, all from a mobile phone. And to my son's dismay, it also tells me when he comes home. The program was such a hit that we've burned through its initial round of funding, but the city is reviewing ways to reinstate it later this year. Our partnership with Ring is a clear example of the kind of innovative thinking that'll help us outsmart crime. So innovative, in fact, that other cities have asked us for advice on how they too can invest in similar programs. Because of efforts like these, Temple City remains one of the top 50 safest cities in California. According to SafeWise, in 2017, our rank actually rose from 38 to 36, something to be proud of. Yet another achievement, Temple City has the largest number of Asian and Asian language speaking deputies in the entire sheriff's force. We've also grown our Neighborhood Watch program to around 20 local leaders who meet monthly with law enforcement officers to bridge the gap between them and residents. But as I've said before, none of these pulses mean the story is finished. Over the next year in particular, we'll be focusing on streamlining communications between our public safety officials and residents. Many of you became familiar with a social media platform called Nextdoor, which connects residents of certain neighborhoods. If you witness a crime or other suspicious occurrence, while you may be tempted to post about it on Nextdoor, it's extremely important that you report it to law enforcement first. You can even do this by texting 911. Likewise, if you have a crime-related question, it's always best to call the Temple City's Sheriff Department and ask instead of crowdsourcing your answer. Our public safety officials continue to seek out even more pathways to communicate with residents, most recently through the adoption of a platform called Nixle, designated to distribute news and announcements to communities more efficiently. Nixle can be used to remind residents about upcoming neighborhood watch meetings and post neighborhood crime blotters. It's also a means for sending out emergency notices and other types of need-to-know information. If you'd like to become more involved in raising awareness and keeping Temple City safe, our Community Police Academy, Volunteers on Patrol program, and Children's Explorers Group are all actively recruiting new members. It's up to each and every one of us to be vigilant and look out for each other. In nearly every instant, more eyes and ears equal less crime. We have our captain here this evening, David Flores, and can we have all our volunteers on parole and our public safety officers and any of our law enforcement stand up, and let's give them a big hand. Sorry. Thank you. Neighborhoods. All that being said, our story truly begins and ends with our neighborhoods. Here in Temple City, where over 80% of our land is residential, our neighborhoods are paramount. They're where we raise our families and form lifelong bonds with our fellow residents. They're also where we and our children form the bulk of our impressions about our city as a whole, which is part of the reason why it is so crucial to keep these sacred places safe, healthy, and sustainable going forward. Over the past 2 years, the city has successfully repaved 17 miles of local roadways. Last year's efforts focused on Temple City Boulevard. This year, we're setting our sights on Rosemead Boulevard, the spine of our community, as well as weighing which other roads are in the most serious need of repair. These will be discussed beginning in April during the council's budget deliberations. A tough decision, to be sure, but one that will be made significantly easier due to the passage of SB 1. Signed into law last year, this gas tax gives the city $620,000 in new funding each year for road repairs, and you can rest assured we'll use testimony from expert scientists and engineers to determine how best to allocate it. Speaking of our roads, in 2017, the city contracted with a nonprofit organization called Canning Hunger to paint residential street addresses on curbs all over the city. In addition to literally enhancing the curb appeal of our neighborhoods, the painting has helped make addresses more visible to visiting friends and public safety officers alike. This spring, the city will begin replacing about 55 overhead street signs, exchanging our older lit signs for energy-efficient, reflective ones. Also, with sustainability in mind, we'll be swapping our existing street lights with LED bulbs. The city will take on the amortized cost of $466,000, allowing residents to simply enjoy the benefits of greener, more boldly colored lights within the next year and a half. Earlier this year, the city became one of 25 participants in the Los Angeles County Choice Energy Program. The program gives residents choice over their energy provider, allowing them to continue partnering with Southern California Edison or beginning purchasing cleaner energy from more environmentally friendly providers. On another note, the city had a banner year in terms of code enforcement. Our code provides standards for Temple City residential areas, which lead to neater and safer neighborhoods and higher property values for owners. The city dealt with double the amount of code violations in 2017 compared to 2016, but we're choosing to frame this as a positive because it shows our residents and staffers are being more proactive about reporting code violations. This gives us the chance to address them more quickly and efficiently. Best of all, our residents have remained extremely compliant when it comes to righting their wrongs, and as a result, less than 1% of our code cases escalate to the legal level. In 2018, the city hopes to educate residents even more about the code and its property maintenance expectations. Also in the works are bilingual English-Chinese flyers that will be distributed throughout our residential areas. The code is a living, breathing piece of legislature. It'll change as our city's story does too. One recent change involved accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, like detached garages that have been converted into living spaces. To preserve the integrity of our neighborhoods, while also recognizing the current housing crisis, we put a limit on the size of each proposed ADU and required that its architectural design remains consistent with the main unit. An ADU now cannot exceed more than 50% of the size of the main unit, and it must remain a single-family property. Another issue we plan to address involves the growing prevalence of Airbnbs. The city has received ample complaints about properties being repurposed for overnight guests, which raises concerns about things like noise and parking availability. This year, the council will consider an ordinance to ban this type of short-term rental. Likewise, in the coming year, we'll take a look at multifamily housing units, like apartment buildings, to guarantee they remain compliant with our code. It's a primary aspect of our council's mission to ensure our residents' safety, health, and longevity. Our work is predicated on the belief that every boy and girl growing up here deserves the opportunity to add a unique plot twist to Temple City's ever-evolving narrative. That said, our council is eager to receive feedback, and we look forward to collaborating with you to integrate it into the city's shared story. This is only the first chapter.
Back already? Did you find the ending to the story?
Not the ending, the beginning. Here, look.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. Give yourselves a big applause. Thank you.